We are officially entering the marketing season for Final Fantasy XVI. At the end of February, Square-Enix hosted a huge event where Yoshi P himself got to play through a little demo of Final Fantasy XVI, and multiple outlets got their hands on the game. So with all these outlets letting us know what they thought with their hands-on impressions of the game, and the development team actually letting us know brand new bits of information about Final Fantasy XVI, let's go ahead and jump into everything that we know so far about Final Fantasy XVI. Before we get started talking about everything we know about Final Fantasy XVI, go ahead down below and click the subscribe button, hit the notification bell as well, and the like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm push these videos out to you guys so that you're all up to date on everything going on with Final Fantasy XVI and other JRPG news. Also, while you're down there, go ahead and drop a comment letting me know how excited you are for Final Fantasy XVI. Maybe you're not excited at all, just let me know your thoughts down below about Final Fantasy XVI. Another thing to mention as well before we really dive into everything that was recently unveiled about the game, most of the information that I'm going to be providing for you guys today is provided to me from RPG site, not directly to me. This is stuff that they've posted publicly onto their website. I'll leave a link down below so that you can read all of the new information as well as the YouTube video game reviewer Skill Up. I'm going to be using a lot of his impressions and the video that he posted. It has a lot of really insightful information. So if you're interested in knowing his thoughts, particular about the demo and his entire experience with the event and interviewing the development team, go ahead down below into the description box and watch his video. It's fantastic. I'm also going to go ahead and leave timestamps as well in case there are any of you guys out there who want to know just maybe one thing or two things in particular about the game. But honestly, go ahead and watch the entire thing. All of the information that we got so far is really interesting. And honestly, just spoiler alert, if you're someone who maybe was not turned on to Final Fantasy XVI when it was announced because you were burned by the previous recent games in the series, so far, what we've learned so far, at least from my perspective, just from looking at all of the information that we have so far, I think that this is going to be an incredibly promising, not just video game in general, but a Final Fantasy video game. It's doing lots of things different, but it's doing lots of things that I really respect, and I think a lot of you diehard Final Fantasy fans will also respect, despite just how different it is. So first things first, we have received a ton of gameplay for the game. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave a bunch of gameplay stuff here on the screen just so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Also, just a fair warning for all of you guys who are sensitive to the spoiler stuff, the footage that I'm going to be putting in the background will be considered to be slight spoilers for many of you. This isn't major plot stuff. You're not going to be spoiled about the ending of the game or plot twists or anything crazy like that. But if you're wanting to go into this game not knowing anything about the enemies or characters, who you play as, and all that stuff, I feel like it's kind of self-explanatory that we're going to be going into details about the video game, but if you, like, I'm just putting this warning out there right now, this video will contain slight spoilers for you guys. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about, outside of just all of the gameplay that we got to see, is the main scenario length and the overall length of Final Fantasy XVI. After they asked about Final Fantasy XVI's length and how long it's going to complete the story, Hishori Takai says to Famitsu that it will be around 35 hours. So this is kind of a common length for a lot of the earlier Final Fantasies as well. 35 hours to finish the story. I think that this is a safe and honestly a pretty good healthy dose of a story. It doesn't linger around for too long, and it's long enough that you don't feel like you were gypped or anything like that. One thing that I remember they mentioned whenever they were discussing the length of this story and how we're going to be spending time here in this world, they want to make sure that this game tells a full and complete story from start to finish. one story. That gives a lot of hope for me. Things like Final Fantasy XIII, where we got a trilogy that I don't think many people were expecting or anything like that, and same thing with Final Fantasy XV as well, with all of the DLC, and not even just the DLC, but we got the movie, the anime, the side games. Like, even still today, I'm getting advertisements on my phone for new mobile games in the Final Fantasy XV universe. And to hear that they are wanting to tell a full and complete story just in Final Fantasy XVI, the video game, I'm so excited about that. I'm so happy that we are going to be playing a video game that will seem satisfactory. You know, obviously we don't know the details. Hopefully it is satisfactory, you know, by the end of the game, but just from start to finish, this is the story. I mean, this was exactly what they talked about. This is what Final Fantasy was for a long time. Hironobu Sakaguchi, this was kind of one of his core principles about Final Fantasy, was that each game was its own individual tale. He was not a fan of sequels. He did not like spin-offs or anything like that. Each game told its own individual story from start to finish, and that's what they're doing. That's what they say that they're doing with Final Fantasy XVI, and I am so excited about that. They describe the scenario as being like a roller coaster, and he even makes a point that's saying that you can potentially be playing this game for about 70 hours, just if you want to go through all of the side content and do all of the little side quests and things like that. And outside of just the gameplay alone, they say that there are a total of 11 hours of story cutscenes. That's a good while. And if the entire game, side content, full, you know, story scenario, if all of that is about 70 hours and 11 of that is story cutscenes, that's incredible. I mean, this is going to be a very beefy game. I think that this is going to definitely hit that $1 per hour mark for a lot of you guys. One thing that Naoki Yoshida had mentioned when talking about this game to people who were interviewing him, he wanted to let people know that this is a video game that is definitely going to be very focused on making sure that there is an equal balance of cutscenes and gameplay. I know that for a lot of games, you know, something like Final Fantasy XIII, you're spent a lot of time on rails, you're watching lots of cutscenes, and you're not spending a lot of time actually playing the game. Final Fantasy XVI, the whole team has strived to make sure that this game is going to be very well balanced whenever it comes to story content and gameplay content. And on the topic of side quests, Yoshi P has some other really interesting news whenever discussing side quests. We have some very dark themes that the story revolves around. We have countries at war. We can't really have some blitzball matches going on when people are killing each other. And then when you have this hero who's talking about and driven by revenge, be like, I'm gonna go out and fish. In that sense, there aren't those types of light things that are going to detract from the story that we're trying to tell. There are lighter aspects, there are more emotional aspects of the game. You have themes such as brotherly love and the love of a nation, love of others, these friendships, these bonds, and things that you've come to expect from the Final Fantasy series. So here, you know, Yoshi P is basically saying, in this world where we have lots of dark themes, we're not really going to throw in some kind of silly little thing to do in the side, like fishing or playing a game like Blitzball, which I think those are fun mini games in their own right, but it seems very clear that they're trying to make this an incredibly immersive experience that doesn't include all of the maybe comedic side of the Final Fantasy games. I'm sure that there's probably going to be some humor here and there. I know, especially since we play through a portion of this game as a child and a portion of the main character in his 20s and in his 30s as well. I'm sure that we're going to find lighthearted things. He even mentions here there is lighthearted aspects, but when it comes down to the gameplay itself, we shouldn't expect something like Blitzball or something like that, or fishing to be something that our characters would actually do here in the world. Yoshida and Final Fantasy XVI director Hiroshi Takai go on to reassure that there's plenty of other side content, however. That includes traditional side quest content, hunts, and quests that will tell storylines that dive into the game's themes, including some lighter material that'll tread some familiar thematic ground to lighter entries in the series. Again, just assuring people that this game is not just brooding and dark the entire time. This is a fantasy game, and it's a Final Fantasy game. There's going to be some lighthearted material. Just when you go into the side quests, expect kind of the traditional questy side of stuff. I'm sure it's something more akin to like doing quests in Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe like Dragon Age Inquisition. I've got dragons on my mind for some reason. So in an interview with The Verge, they asked the team basically, what's this game gonna feel like? What's this the closest to? And maybe you've seen other videos out there like the Night Sky Prince covering this aspect of the game as well. But essentially they go and they say this: one game that is close to how the whole game cycle works is the most recent God of War. The past 10 or so years of Final Fantasy has been about how bright the series is. You still have these dark themes about how we're going to save the world, but then it's like you have these kids that are in their teens running around saving the world, having fun and going fishing and things like that, even though the world is supposed to be ending. And so there's not a sense of reality. So like mentioned whenever we were talking about the side quest content of the game, this game is going to be fairly dark. There's going to be the lighthearted aspects of the game, but they are really trying to ground it into something that is deeply emotional and very grounded in as much reality as a fantasy story like this can get you. So if you're a fan of God of War, awesome. I love God of War, and I think that this is going to be a really interesting direction that the series is going to take, because one thing that we continue to see from the producers as well is they are hoping that this game will kind of be the turning point. Like this right here is the Resident Evil 7 for the Final Fantasy franchise. This is the new turning point for the series, and they want to take these into big emotional directions. Another thing that stuck out to me in SkillUp's video whenever he was discussing this game with the development team, it's that the team wants to really get across this idea that Final Fantasy is a must-buy series. This is a big AAA game. And so for a lot of people, big games like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, Assassin's Creed, these are the big games that people usually say, oh, the new one's coming out, I have to buy it. And over time, that's kind of not been the case for Final Fantasy. It used to be the case. Back, 1 through 10, those were the games that everybody was saying, this is a must-buy series. You gotta play these games in this series. And just over time, that's kind of gone downhill. Even with Final Fantasy VII Remake being as huge as it is, Final Fantasy has kind of taken a nosedive in worldwide popularity. Don't get me wrong, it's still big. I think the numbers are growing exponentially. But in the current sphere of gaming, what people are playing, how live streaming works, the games that people are wanting to watch people play, the games that people are really wanting to play, Final Fantasy just kind of has gone to the sidelines just a little bit. And one thing that I know that this team is trying to do is they're trying to turn that around and prove to everyone that Final Fantasy is a must-buy game series. So the fact that they're comparing this game to be the closest to something like God of War, it's showing that they really do have an idea of what people really enjoy. And as we continue to go through this, I think that we are also not only getting something that people in general are going to enjoy, but something that Final Fantasy fans are going to enjoy as well. Talking about the combat and just the way you play the game here, we do have very familiar RPG stats appearing in this game. Just reading this article from RPG Site, it says, as part of its streamlined action focus, Final Fantasy XVI will feature RPG progression, and it'll be spread across 4 core stats, which make it rather simplified compared to many other entries in the series. The protagonist, Clive, has stats for HP, attack, defense, and stagger, alongside strength, vitality, and will, classic RPG stats. In addition to these stats, Clive, of course, has a variety of abilities and skills that he can unlock, including those special skills inherited from Eikons, aka summons. And speaking of those summons, I highly encourage you to go down below and watch SkillUp's video talking about how the summons fight, but this has been heavily emphasized by multiple people that the fights in this game feel like a big wrestling match with these gigantic kaijus. In the gameplay that y'all are seeing, we finally have a really good look at what these giant icon fights are actually going to look and play like, and I am so excited to get my hands on this video game and do these huge fights. There's also 4 different types of gear. Reading again here from RPG Site, they say, Final Fantasy appears to feature 4 types of equipable gear for Clive as seen in these new screenshots and footage. That's a weapon slot for his sword, a belt slot, a wrist slot for a wristband, and the accessory slots, making it 6 slots total, comprising 4 unique types of gear. The amount of equipable gear is probably going to expand, maybe it'll stay the same, but the fact that we have stuff like item slots and other items that we can just equip to our character, different sorts of weapons, different sorts of belts and stuff like that, I'm really excited just to see, how this is really going to affect the gameplay, what the numbers are going to be like, stats and things like that for all of this. It's kind of stuff that we expect from really any sort of action RPG or action game in this vein, but it's just kind of cool that we get this detail. We didn't have those details exactly before, but now we do. So rest assured, in case you were wondering if we're going to be able to equip our belts and gauntlets and swords and items and stuff like that, we can absolutely change those in the game. Also, one of the previews from Push Square mentioned the fact that while they were playing the game, it was running at 30 frames per second at 4K, but there will be a performance option that allows you to play the game in 60 frames per second. I'm assuming the resolution will be downscaled a little bit, but just know for now that there will be a 60 frames per second option whenever the game comes out. This is not going to be a patch. This is from day one. We will get 60 frames per second as an option. In another interview with the director of the game from Gematsu, we also got some information about New Game Plus and what that's going to look like. There's also New Game Plus, which carries over your play data and you're able to play the game again. You can do that in story-focused mode or action-focused mode. But for New Game Plus, we also have a third mode that we introduced called the Final Fantasy mode, which not only is more difficult, but it also changes enemy placement as well as the enemies that you fight. So it's a completely different experience. How cool is it that we actually have a mode in the game called Final Fantasy? I don't know what that's supposed to mean in the context of the game itself, if it does have any other meaning. I mean, obviously it's the name of the series, but the fact that once you're done with the game, not only will you get to play the game again, but now everything's going to be different. It's not going to be what you expect. That's incredible, because most New Game Plus modes, I think of things like God of War and, Bloodborne and the Souls games and things like that. Usually, the New Game Plus mode typically just means your stats are higher because you carried everything over, so you start the game really beefed up so you can explore maybe new areas that you weren't able to quickly explore whenever you first played the game, like stuff like that. That's really cool. But the fact that once you play the game and you want to play it on a harder difficulty using all of the experience that you had beforehand, but now the game is just straight up different, that is incredible. And I'm excited for that, and I'm almost certainly going to be playing New Game Plus eventually, Final Fantasy mode after I play the game the first time. Another thing that we learned as well is the combat accessibility. We know that the gameplay is designed by the same gameplay director over at Capcom with Devil May Cry 5, so this game is going to be definitely playing like an action game through and through, as you can see from all the gameplay. But when it comes to accessibility, like the different modes and things like that, there's not really easy mode or hard mode or medium. You don't pick a different mode at the start of the game like how you would in something like the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Instead, you get equipable items that grant you special perks like, attack, evasion, HP, stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and read real fast exactly what these rings can do. There's 6 of these Ring of Timely items covering assistance, evasion, focus, healing, and strikes. You can equip up to 2 of these at any given time, and each takes the pressure off a particular element of Final Fantasy XVI's combat. This is ideal for those less comfortable with the combat that plays a lot like Devil May Cry. The focus ring simply slows down time before you're hit by incoming attacks, for instance, giving you time to react. But if you need even more help, you might be more comfortable with the evasion ring, which automatically dodges most incoming attacks, or the healing ring, which auto-heals with potions when things get dicey. On the offensive side of things, the strike ring basically allows you to perform complicated combos by just mashing one attack button, while the assistance ring issues commands to your canine buddy, Torgal, automatically. This is useful because Torgal is often used as a combo extender and can even occasionally heal protagonist Clive. So as far as accessibility goes and modes and things like that, like I said, not really something that you just choose from the beginning of the game, but you do have items that kind of grant these maybe you want to call them cheat modes. But also, speaking just on the gameplay, and now that we've got another mention here on Torgal, the wolf or dog, whatever it is, buddy of yours, you do have party members. You have people who fight alongside you, and this was something that was kind of covered a little while ago, but just to reiterate that again here in this video, and just everything that we've obtained information wise about this game just in these last few weeks, this is a single player, you play as one character video game. By that I mean you don't swap in and out of party members, you don't control anyone except for your main character, and you don't decide what your entire party does at just any given time. Although, as mentioned here, as well as in Skill Up's review of the demo and his experience, Torgal kind of acts similarly to Atreus in the God of War series, where you can press certain buttons that allow him to do certain things. So just kind of reiterating again, this game does feel a bit like God of War in that aspect, where yes, you're playing as the one character, but you're not really playing as Atreus in like that first God of War game. You're just kind of pressing buttons that kind of tell him to go do stuff. That is the extent of party control that we have here in the game. Other than that, you're playing as one guy. Another thing mentioned in these interviews is the topic of the timed exclusivity. We know that this game has an exclusive deal with PlayStation. It's going to be on PS5. That's where it's going to be whenever the game comes out, but that timed exclusivity does end after 6 months. So where's it going to go after month 6? Are we going to get it on Xbox? Are we going to get it on Nintendo Switch? Are we going to get it on PC? No, we're not going to be getting anything after the 6-month period. What Yoshi P does state, though, is that he would love for this game to come out on PC. However, once this game is out and into people's hands, it's not going to be immediately 6 months later that we get the game for PC. It's going to have a lot more fine-tuning. They're going to have to retweak a lot of things about the game in order to make it playable and run really well on PC. So the short answer is yes, the game will come to PC later, just not after 6 months. Another thing to mention too is that this game is not going to be delayed. Many Final Fantasy games, just about every Final Fantasy game has had delays and delays and delays, and we have seen that especially recently with the recent Final Fantasy games. Yoshi P has straight up said we would have to be hit by a meteor here in Japan if this game were to be delayed. It's not going to be delayed. This game has a release date, and it is coming out on June 22nd. So for all of you who are scared about this game getting delayed last minute, like how many video games in general do, like that's just a common thing, unfortunately, nowadays. That's not happening here. Like he said, literally a disaster, like a meteor would have to hit Japan for this game to be delayed. And unless that happens, this game is coming out when they say it's coming out. And last but not least, there will be a demo for the game. Yoshi P hasn't given an exact date on when the demo is going to drop, but he did say approximately 2 weeks before the game comes out. So you will have some time before the game comes out that you will be able to play the game. And like in typical recent Square-Enix fashion, this demo will have save data that will carry over from the demo to the full game whenever it releases. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen here in this demo, but I think it's safe to assume that we're going to get a taste of this beginning portion of the video game. So if that just means getting to play the game 2 weeks before it comes out for a certain amount of time, I'm so excited about that. I'll sing the praises of any company that does stuff like this, but giving people the game, putting it in their hands, saying, here is our gift to you, the first few hours of the game, and whenever the full game comes out, all of your save data from this transfers over. You don't have to start over or anything like that. I love that. I am so excited about, just getting this demo, however early it comes. I'm just so excited to play this game. There is some more information, just little details about how the game specifically plays, what buttons do certain actions and things like that. I personally didn't get a chance to play the video game, but like I said, Skill Up down in the description below. Go watch his video. It's about 30 minutes and he explains his entire experience at the Square-Enix event. interviewing the people creating the game and just his hands on the game itself. It's an excellent video. I highly recommend it. Go watch that video now. But that's about it from me, guys. Please let me know down below what you think about all of this brand new information. Does it make you more excited about Final Fantasy XVI? Are you more worried about Final Fantasy XVI? Are you going to play it? Are you going to skip it? I want to know all of your thoughts down below. And while you're down there, again, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and hit the notification bell as well so that you are notified whenever more videos like this, news, information, reviews, whatever, anytime that this comes out, you'll be notified. And it also helps the YouTube algorithm as well. Also, there's a Discord link in the description below as well. If you're interested in joining a community of like-minded people who love Final Fantasy, RPGs in general, go ahead and join as well. I'd love to see you in there. However, that's going to do it for me, guys. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.